appear all same. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather the spirit rolling below, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Toledo on this February 18th, 2024. This Sunday, we are kicking off our combined stewardship drive, We Love UU, and capital campaign for accessibility, community impact, and home in support of our mission of fostering spiritual growth and community action. I am Sandra Kosek-Sills, today's service associate. Our senior minister, the Reverend Dr. T.K. Barger, will be leading the service today. Our music will be provided by music director Jeffrey Maxey, joined by our Toledo Unitarians choir. Our story will be provided by our director of lifelong learning, Ginny Gottman. We are a church with no official doctrine or creed. Instead, we strive to support each other in our responsible search for truth and meaning. If you are a visitor, you will notice in the pew rack in front of you a bookmark with information about Unitarian Universalism. Please feel free to take one with you. There's also a yellow card that you can use to introduce yourself to us. And if you include your email, we will send you news of our various activities. And as you meet people today, please feel free to introduce yourself and ask any questions you may have. We also welcome those of you who are joining us virtually on our YouTube channel. This morning, this is made possible by our tech crew, Walter McGee, who is our producer and director, with Andy Gottman on cameras and Jeff Slauson at the soundboard.
Hi, I'm Reverend Tim, and let me add to Sandra's welcome to you here in our sanctuary, to our viewers watching live on YouTube, and to you who have tuned in later to our Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel. I'm glad you're gathering the Spirit now with us at First Unitarian Church of Toledo. As Sandra lights the chalice, let's say the words for lighting together. When the words come onto the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. Together, we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in our world.
While we're reciting together, let's say the covenant of our congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Today, on our minds, in our hearts, and with our spirits, we think of the ways of the world, the state of the nation, the serenity of our own souls. There are people in our circles who, with their family and friends, have challenges of life and death, health and illness, home and travel, financial security, and monetary stress. And that's not just for individuals and families, but for organizations we're a part of, including this congregation. And I plead here for you to stay with us, even though today's service is focused on the financial. Decisions are being made by ourselves and others on how we can live our best lives, which sometimes means aspiring to that and realizing we have moves yet to make to reach aims and goals. And individual and family ways go on with new lives born and many other joys and celebrations. May we be compassionate to all, as we don't know what other people are going through, so treat one another well, giving dignity and compassion. And may we be glad for their celebrations and ours. On our minds, in our hearts, and in our spirits is the working of government. Today we mourn the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, a political prisoner there who died in jail. We are far short of world peace, and Russia's invasion and war in Ukraine is at the 2-year mark on February 24th. And that's just but one example. And another of great concern is the war of Israel taking place in Palestinian territory. For a tie back to Toledo, I'm thankful that our city council worked to craft a resolution on Palestine and Israel, which passed. Let me read from it. The Toledo City Council asserts expressed sympathy for the innocent civilians victimized by the war in Palestine and Israel, condemns violence of any kind, affirms Toledo's status as a certified welcoming community for those of the Jewish, Islamic, and all other religious communities. Furthermore, this council encourages residents to offer support and sincere condolences to members of the Israeli and Palestinian communities of Toledo and all over the world. Toledo City Council expresses its unwavering support and sympathy for all Palestinian, Israeli, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, and all other members of the Toledo community who have been impacted by the atrocities of this war. Toledo City Council calls for an immediate, lasting, negotiated, bilateral ceasefire, release of all hostages, and unrestricted humanitarian aid at the levels recommended by the United Nations for the Palestinian people. Toledo City Council condemns all forms of anti-Arab and anti-Palestinian racism, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia, each of whom has the right to learn, work, worship, gather, advocate, mourn, and celebrate free from intimidation, harassment, doxing, and fear of violence. We also have on our minds, in our hearts, with our spirits, the fact that there is disaster by nature and disaster caused by humans, that inequality, inequity, and racism are in our societies, and we can do our own parts not to oppress, to celebrate many cultures, to grow in self and universally. and also on our minds, in our hearts, with our spirits, is continuing approaches to how do we deal with the COVID crisis in the world. The latest news is that the Centers for Disease Control is considering easing up on the isolation requirement that has been, that if you're 24 hours free of fever, you can go about your active life. And with that, I just want to reiterate that at First Unitarian Church of Toledo, masks are always welcome for anyone who wants to wear them. And please, if it's comfortable for you, do mask up. One reason we join in religious gatherings is to realize common links. The uncommon is here too. Let's be together in faith, hope, and love, physically and in spirit. And you might have your own items for meditation, contemplation, and prayer. So we include the unsaid here. As we are in community, we can share burdens and be glad for accomplishments. And now please join us for our opening hymn. Today it's number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. We'll sing verses 1 through 3, and the lyrics will be on the screen. Some of you might come from Christian traditions in which alleluias are omitted during the season of Lent. And Lent began this past Wednesday, continuing until Easter. However, in Unitarian Universalism, our speech is a little bit freer. So today we can sing a hymn full of alleluias. If you can and you're willing, please stand.
Creatures of the earth and sky, come, kindred, lift your voices high. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Bright burning sun with golden beam, soft shining moon with silver gleam. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah. Swift rushing winds so wild and strong, white clouds that sail in heaven along. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Fair rising morning, praise rejoice. Our stars of evening find a voice. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Cool flowing water, pure and clear, make music for all life to hear. Hallelujah, hallelujah. God's flame of fire strong and bright, and bless us with your warmth and light. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Morning. The past couple of weeks, we have talked about children who participated in the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 1960s. We talked about a child who helped integrate buses and a child who helped integrate schools. Today, we're going to talk about some children who helped integrate restaurants. For those who might not know these words, when protesters decide to break the law and get arrested because they want to help change that law, that's called a demonstration, or sometimes it's called a sit-in. as in I'm going to sit in this restaurant until they make me leave. A lot of the teenagers who were involved in these demonstrations and sit-ins were working with grown-ups who gave them some rules and advice about how to go about their demonstration. The kids had to look very clean, neat, proper, well-dressed, and they had to be perfectly polite the whole time that they were getting arrested. James Roberson was a man from Alabama. He just actually died earlier this year, and he was a civil rights activist all his life. When he was 16 years old and a college freshman, he lived in Huntsville, Alabama, and he and his friends decided to have a sit-in in a restaurant called Shoney's. James had gone to these trainings and learned about the rules that he had to follow, and this is what he says about it. The main thing was not to be vulgar. Do not curse, do not exchange insults, sit quietly. This is how James described the actual sit-in later in his life. He says, "We were very well dressed. They weren't going to be able to say that we weren't clean. We were not drinking alcohol and we were not hostile. As we walked in, there was the clacking and clicking of plates and forks. Snap, poof, it stopped suddenly. It was like some people from Mars had walked in. We waited a long minute, the kind of minute where you can feel your skin tightening and ants biting. You knew you were doing something wrong. We were not afraid, but we were tense because we didn't know if they were going to start a fight. One of the white patrons made some mean and scary threats. The manager was a young white guy. "I can't serve you," he said. "I'm from up north and I understand, but you guys just can't eat here." This is what James faced when he was 16 years old, and this was not his first demonstration. Another young restaurant demonstrator was named Frances Foster. Frances was 14 the first time she got arrested. She also had been taught how to do a demonstration. At that time, a lot of stores had little bitty restaurants in them where people could sit and have some refreshments. And Frances went to one of these stores, and she bought a book, and then she went to the cafe. She and her friend sat down at a table, and this is how Frances described what happened. A white lady came over to me and said, "What are you doing up here? You know you can't eat up here." I said, "Why can't I? I made a purchase in the store and they accepted my money. I'd like to order, please." The lady repeated, "You have to go. You just can't eat up here. You know better." I said, "I'm not leaving until I'm served," and so I sat there. A white man came up and said, "I'm going to have to ask you to get out of here, girl. You know you're supposed to eat downstairs somewhere." I said, "I'd like to have a menu, please. Will you have someone come clean the table off?" A few minutes later, television cameras and the Birmingham, Alabama police came. The officer said, "Girl, you know you ain't supposed to be up here. Come on, let's go. We're going to take you on down to jail." I said, "I'm still waiting to be served my lunch. They haven't come to clean the table off, and I'd like to order." That's 4 times that Frances said no. Then at this point, Frances was arrested in front of all the television cameras, and she said that as she left the store in police custody, "I politely came down the steps like the young lady I was. When the officer told her to get in the police car, she told them, 'That car is too crowded. I can't get in there and wrinkle up my dress.' Here she adds, 'It was my new dress.' He said, 'If you don't get in this car, I'll take this gun and hit you upside the head.' I said, 'I'm not going to get in that car. There's no seat for me to sit down, and I can't wrinkle up my dress.' She says, 'Finally, he made somebody sit on somebody else's lap, and I got in. They took us straight to juvenile jail. I was so proud of what I had done.'" So not only are these children as bold and impressive as any American hero, Charles Lindbergh, Paul Revere, they had to do their heroic deeds while behaving perfectly and looking their very best. So please remember that even though a lot of these kids' stories have been pushed aside and ignored, there were thousands of them, and every single one of them are American heroes.
Let's sing for the children, as this is the time when they and their teachers leave our service for religious education.
People get ready, there's a train coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is the faith to hear the diesels humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. People get ready for the train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is a key, open doors and board them. There's hope for all among those loved the most. There ain't no room for the hopeless sinner who would hurt all mankind just to save his own. Have pity on those whose chances go thinner, so there's no hiding place for the kingdom's throne. People get ready, there's a train coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is the faith to hear the diesels humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Please join me for a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. This reading by Jessica Lynn is We Make It Possible. I come on Sunday feeling weary, having worn out the snooze button on my alarm clock. I come on Sunday feeling frightened, having seared my eyes reading the latest news. I come on Sunday feeling burdened, having fretted about my workday worries. But I leave Sunday service feeling refreshed, having been renewed by the spirit of love in the community that exists here. I leave Sunday service feeling whole, feeling lifted up by the words of righteous challenge. I leave Sunday service feeling energized, ready to continue our fight for peace and justice. This haven, this refuge, this place of worship and wonder exists because we make it so with our contributions, the gifts of our time, our skills, our food, our love, our laughter, and our money. May we continue to have a place that fortifies and challenges us in trying and troubled times, a place that celebrates and encourages us when things are good. Let's observe 1 minute of silence.
Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with elation. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me.
All right, for today's reading, A Tangible Commitment by Elizabeth Murphy, adapted. I bring this reading, A Tangible Commitment by Elizabeth Murphy, in the spirit of trust and generosity. The Toledo Unitarians leaders, both volunteers and staff members, work diligently throughout the year to be careful and attentive stewards of the congregation and its funds. Countless meetings, reports, documents, and budgets are necessary to maintain the health of an organization, especially one that has endured since Unitarianism came to Toledo in 1860. We depend on our tools and on our teams to track where every dollar goes, and they do just that. But the gifts you make to our weekly offering, through your annual pledge, and in our capital campaigns represent far more than lines on a spreadsheet. Your contributions are a tangible commitment to the mission and vision of First Unitarian Church of Toledo. Each time you give, you renew this commitment. And as a result, your support is entwined with all that we believe and all that we do here together. This is its own special gift.
Those of you who paid attention to Coming Soon near the end of last Sunday's service might remember that for today's sermon title, Fuel for Our Future, I said that fuel was an acronym, but I wasn't sure what for. But I did make sure that you heard the first two letters stood for First Unitarian. Well, today is the first day, the kickoff for our combined annual pledge drive and capital campaign, which means today's words from me are a stewardship sermon. And Fuel for Our Future can refer to First Unitarians' economic lifelines. That fuel comes primarily from 5 categories: the annual pledge, fundraising events, impromptu giving, capital campaigns, and legacy funding. The two list toppers today are annual pledge and capital campaign support. So I'll say more about those, but briefly, something about those other columns. Impromptu giving includes any extra that goes to the collection plate, or if you share a windfall when you find you have a surplus and think First Unitarian might benefit from the addition to your assets. Fundraising events range from concerts we host with an admission fee. Usually a percentage goes to the artist or leader, and the church gets a cut of the total, to our auction and yard and rummage sales, to requested donations at free happenings like social justice programs organized by our Unitarian Action Committee. And legacy funding is mostly people remembering our church in their wills. And we're humbled to know that we've touched people to an extent that they remember us at their end. So please use all of those ways to help First Unitarian Church of Toledo, to help us to thrive. Today it's time to ask for money. I want to be straightforward about that. Some preachers do a great job somehow talking about mission and vision and use good sense to avoid any mention of dollars. And their words inspire the congregation to make strong, supporting financial commitments while the church itself keeps the money aspect under the surface. I, however, have always been concerned about both my own budget and the religious institutions I've had responsibility for. As a member, then on a board, and now as First Unitarian Church of Toledo's called, settled, full-time senior minister. For my own budget, I know I'll never get rich, and that this church and I have negotiated a compensation package that serves both of us. That my bills get paid, you continue to have a permanent minister. We follow the recommendations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and we recognize there's a delicate balance there. So I'm open that today I'm asking for money, not for me directly, but for First Unitarian Church of Toledo. While some say this talk doesn't belong in church at a Sunday service, that's how churches exist. We're more than a prayer circle. For the church, we have a straightforward call for funds to meet our ongoing needs, to answer unpredicted burdens, to arrange for us to better prepare for the future. First Unitarian Church of Toledo is a Unitarian Universalist congregation, but we're an independent organization. We don't count on the Unitarian Universalist Association, the UUA, to subsidize our local budget. The money goes in the other direction as they ask us to pay them, and we have a long history of giving less than they request, but that's the most we've been able to afford. So let's get immersed in numbers. Membership count first, then finances, including what an amount might be for the annual pledge and the capital campaign. A ministerial colleague, Reverend Dr. Matthew Johnson, who is senior minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church, Rockford, Illinois, took the time this week to explore facts and figures, as he put it, about Unitarian Universalist congregations based on the annual certification information the congregations submitted to the UUA. He compared membership. The Toledo Unitarians reported having 140 members, consisting of 93 pledging units, so that total of 140 members includes 33.5% individual pledges and 66.5% family pledges. Most of those family ones from married couples as a two-person pledge unit. We also stated that our total operating expenses for 2023 were $273,632. We are one of about 1,000 congregations in the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. There are a few congregations that missed the annual reporting deadline, and some have closed, including the Unitarian Universalist Church of Blanchard Valley in Findlay, some members of which you'll see in our pews from time to time. So we don't have the exact number, but 1,000 in the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, and France means we are widely distributed, at least. Other locations, like the British Unitarians and the Unitarian churches in Eastern Europe, aren't part of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, so they're not included in the 1,000 church count. Matthew Johnson reported that the number of members of UUA congregations that certified is 133,247. So in Toledo, our membership is slightly more than 0.1% of all UUA members on record. You can't really take much meaning from that statistic, as we'd like to have more members and be more prominent that way, but we'd also like to have more congregations and have many, many more committed Unitarian Universalists in the world. But our 140 members figure is just above the average of 137 for a congregation. And we're above the midline that there are as many congregations with fewer than 86 members as there are with more than 86 members. Comparing to others in our geographic area might be more revealing. In Northwest Ohio, we have 140 members, our congregation in Bowling Green, 50. First Universalist in Lyons has 28, and the Lima UUs number 27. There are 113 members in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and in the greater Detroit area, only 2 congregations have more members than we do. Bloomfield Hills at 258, and Ann Arbor, 504 members. Our First Unitarian Church of Toledo is the 7th largest UU church in Ohio, behind Columbus at 525 members, West Shore in the Cleveland suburb of Rocky Ridge at 457, the Cleveland congregation in Shaker Heights with 304, then Akron at 206, Kent at 172, and Worcester at 162. Note that Columbus and Ann Arbor congregations might both benefit from their cities having nationally prominent universities. Since I started my service as the minister here on February 1st, 2017, 7 years ago, we've had 48 people join our membership. There were about 160 members when I came, and I think we're doing well considering that generally there's a trend of fewer people coming to any church, plus the time of the COVID pandemic had drop-offs in people's congregational activity. I've been saying that's the time when people discovered CBS Sunday mornings. We can build our membership number now. A lot of member numbers were just thrown at you. What they get to is that our 140 member count is healthy, but we could do better. And we do have plans to reform a membership committee and be able to do more to bring new people into our congregation who could make pledges, sign the membership book, and at least as important as being counted for member and money, to be active in this church as participants and leaders and social friends. And please let there be a few who have a member recruitment touch, and a few more who are interested in helping with our technology and video needs. Those numbers were all from membership too. It's members who give to First Unitarians economic lifelines. And if we bring in more members, we can more easily set a budget. For now, though, we have to depend on you, the people who are here in the pews and seeing us on YouTube, to make our finances healthy, because hoped-for members sometimes don't pan out. What do we ask of you today in this service about stewardship? First, there's the annual pledge. In the past, I've drawn the analogy that if you give to other organizations that are nonprofits or charities, please consider giving at least that amount to First Unitarian Church of Toledo. And if you have subscriptions, whether print media, streaming services, or public broadcasting, subscribe at least in those amounts to us. We're the ones who depend almost all on our members year to year to have us fund every aspect of this nonprofit business. And with that, we can help to support your spirit, give care which is sometimes pastoral, other times emotional, and can even be financial. Provide a place and people to help you work for justice in the world and for peace in the community. And we can even try for serenity for families. And we provide resources and encouragement for your free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We give opportunities for religious exploration and education. Our children's religious education enrollment was reported at 13, which is wonderful considering we built pretty much from 0 at pandemic time. And Jenny Gottman is doing a lot with our Spiritual Forum for Adults as well. And don't forget the friendships formed here, the potlucks and other social opportunities, and the joys of being with other religious liberals for a time, plus committee work. that can be rewarding. This year, our stewardship people are asking for the annual pledge that you review what you've been giving and consider adding to that amount. Some of us get used to giving the same amount every year, and inflation eats into that. I did some figuring to find that what cost $20 when our church moved to this location in 2008 would cost $30 now, half again as much. So please think about giving more for your annual pledge. My colleague Matthew Johnson found that what he called the median average pledge among UUA members is $1,947 a year. I hadn't thought till I was writing this that we might ask that your annual pledge be your birth year, but maybe be millennial and round it up to $2,000 if you're not already pledging at least that amount. I've said before that we no longer have the congregational composition of a number of well-earning doctors and lawyers and titans of industry. And we certainly are long past the time when we can go to one or two well-off members of the congregation and ask for a large check to cover any financial shortfall. No, these days we're all in this together, and we're all trying to make ends meet at home and at church. So we're careful about our spending. Know that First Unitarian is a place of and for care, and your giving really does mean something good here. So be realistic with your budget, but if you can stretch as well as allow for inflation, please pledge and give at a higher amount than you have been. Let me state clearly that you'll probably be hearing different words than mine, though in the same be generous direction, from our visiting stewards, the people who will be asking you to pledge for the annual drive and the capital campaign. They're being trained for this, and I'm reaching for my own examples. So trust them more than me, please. And now to our capital campaign. Capital campaigns are shorter-term requests for more giving. This campaign of ours is for both capital improvements and increasing our ongoing capital resource, our operating reserve, which some call the endowment. When I say that almost all of First Unitarian's funding comes from your giving here within our congregation, I mean that almost all the rest of it comes from our operating reserve, on which we draw a small percentage of financial interest it generates to supplement your pledging. The annual pledge and the capital campaign believe it, but also believe that though it sounds like it's a lot, it's not enough. Provides for about $250,000 a year for us to have this church. We found we need a bit more than that. Please help. We know it asks a lot, but we haven't found a better way, not just to catch up, but to make needed improvements. We started our most recent capital campaign about a decade ago, 6 years after moving into this building at 3205 Glendale Avenue in Toledo. That raised money for capital repair and improvements, including a new roof and replacement of some furnaces. It provided for some remodeling projects in our kitchen, improving lighting in the sanctuary, and repaving part of our parking area. And it helped us to get solar panels and make some other changes for sustainability and environmental leadership. We made a few accessibility improvements and have many more to go. And that capital campaign included a few other objectives. This time around, we want to continue with accessibility aspects, including installing an automated door to the building. We want to make some impact on the larger community, and that includes some focus on audio-visual upgrades, as we found, starting with the arrival of COVID-19, that now we really can't do church well without an online remote aspect. We want to give our church what we call home improvements that would include attention to our kitchen and changes to the sanctuary, which I'll call our living room. My hope for the sanctuary, and I don't know how close we can get to it because it will cost a lot, is to replace the carpet with some kind of solid flooring and remove the pews for chairs. And with those changes, we'll have much more flexibility for services and for other use of this space, such as for banquets and trying more things with what I've called food ministry. And I also would like us to redo this chancel area so everything is on one level and reachable by a ramp. And that would provide both accessibility and the opportunity to stage plays and have other performances here. And as I've said, we want to increase the operating reserve because that would better provide for financial sustainability. The way a capital campaign works is to ask the membership to give more for a limited period of time. Ideally, you're asked after you increase your annual pledge to account for inflation to give more than that for a 3-year pledge period, which means it's possible to pay that over 4 calendar years. The difficult ask is for you to double your pledge for that amount of time, and then when the capital campaign is over, you have several years just with your annual pledge and no additions outside of the other First Unitarian economic lifelines of impromptu giving, funds, fundraising events, and legacy commitments. All this talk about money and how much is wearing, isn't it? I'm not great with my personal family budget, and I also have to think about all of this. Please know the asking comes from a good place, and First Unitarian leadership thinks it's essential that we be a leading liberal religious voice in Northwest Ohio. And we want you to be part of that voice with your presence at First Unitarian, your participation in our activities, and with your pledge of financial support. Please be practical. Don't give what you don't have, but give enough to help this institution serve you, all of its members, and this area well. Be generous, fellow Toledo Unitarians. Give in the best spirit. Bless you, and so be it.
All right. Before we have our offering, as we begin our campaigns, we want to make a covenant between our visiting stewards and the congregation. The words will come up on the screen, but first I want to ask that our visiting stewards, if you're willing to stand up, if you would do so, or raise your hand. So just for a moment, so people can see who you are. I want to just show so much appreciation to these folks for being willing to take the time to take a little training and reach out and speak with you all. And you can have a seat if you'd like. All right, and then for the words of the covenant, I will read with the stewards, and Reverend Tim will read with the congregation. Okay, stewards, please join me in these words. We come before you committed to doing our best to make our congregational dreams come true by asking each of you for your help in supporting the mission of our congregation.
And with the congregation committed to the dreams and hopes of this congregation, we accept the responsibility for turning these hopes and dreams into reality.
We commit ourselves to preparing for each stewardship conversation by having already made our own financial commitment and becoming knowledgeable about the goals of our annual pledge drive and our exciting capital campaign. We further commit ourselves to contacting each of you to set up a convenient time for our stewardship conversation, and we commit to starting on time.
Congregation, we commit ourselves to respond to the visiting steward and to make time in our busy lives to have a stewardship conversation. We commit to prepare for the conversation by reflecting upon our relationship with the church and to engage the visiting steward in honest and direct conversation.
We commit ourselves to listen respectfully to your dreams and concerns. We promise to keep private what should be private and pass along only that information that you have asked us to share, along with providing to our campaign leadership and staff the needed details of giving.
We commit ourselves to generosity of spirit and promise to make an annual pledge and capital campaign commitment to the best of our ability. And everyone, and together we commit ourselves to enjoy each other's company, to respect each other's ideas, perceptions, and beliefs, and to have a good time while raising money to ensure the future health and grandest dreams of our church.
And I think I've got a slide in here now. Yes, all right. So your visiting stewards and our stewardship capital campaign team have already been hard at work. So we have had a leadership phase of our capital campaign. I'm very pleased to report that we've raised $179,000 already for this campaign, and I will be posting updates every week as we go through this process so that you can follow along in our progress. You see at the top of our chart here, our goal is $400,000, and according to our financial feasibility study, that is within reach if everybody stretches maybe just a little bit. So we really appreciate the folks that have participated already, and we're looking forward to seeing where we go from here. Thank you. And now it is time for the morning offering. We depend upon your contributions to be able to offer our vibrant programs. There are several ways that you may give. You can aim your phone at the QR code when that comes up on the slide. Have we got that next? Or if you want to give by way of an app instead, we're now on Venmo at First Unitarian Church Toledo. Or you can go to uutoledo.org, click on Give, and then click on online giving. And if you use the QR code, it'll take you straight there. Or you can mail a check to us at 3205 Glendale Avenue, Toledo, Ohio 43614. On the back of the pews, you will find an envelope in which you may place your donation and drop in the basket at the entrance to the sanctuary. Thank you.
And number 1010, the words will be on the screens.
We give thanks to this precious day, for gathered, all gathered here far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We're gathered, all gathered here far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
It was all my fault that we had the lyrics for last week's offertory on the screen. It's the coming soon part of our service where we tell you what's on the calendar for next week. We give some announcements, and we also let you know what's up for right after the service. Next Sunday at 9:45 a.m. for our spiritual forum in Fellowship Hall, we'll welcome Joe Habib from St. Paul's Community Center downtown to tell us about the various programs and offerings at St. Paul's. And we'll relay some stories from his time providing social services in the Toledo area. We might also learn a few ways that we can help them in their crucial work. Come join the conversation. And then for the Sunday service at 11 a.m. here in the sanctuary and on our YouTube channel, the title is Lamo Tondap. You might not know that's the name given at birth to the person who became the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet. We'll have an appreciation of the Dalai Lama's life, his leadership, and his ministry.
Are you interested in learning Tai Chi? We have now had 4 weeks of Wednesday noon classes with Randy Menakis, a certified Tai Chi instructor, and the hour-long sessions will continue for 7 more weeks. You are free to attend any or all classes, and the cost is $5 per class. See the order of service or our UUFYI for more information. And a little more than 2 weeks away, we'll have Dialogue to Change, a way of exploring racism and bias with the goal of promoting racial justice. The participants meet in community with people interracially for discussions and exercises. Dialogue to Change is scheduled for Tuesday and Thursday, March 5th and 7th, 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and includes lunch. You're asked to attend both sessions. We're presenting this in partnership with the YWCA. To register, see the information on the order of service or in the UUFYI. And the final coming soon entry is for me to invite you to join us in Fellowship Hall after today's service for coffee, conversation, and social time.
Please join me in reciting the words for us figuratively to send some Unitarian Universalist fire into the community while Sandra extinguishes the chalice flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And the postlude hymn for all is 318, We Would Be One.
We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love, now pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, a better world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to great service, with love and justice trying to make us free.